Hello, beautiful people. How are you? My name is Gloria Lorraine. You can call me Lorraine. Some people call me Glow. Either way. Lately, I have been sitting down and talking about true crime. So if it's something you like, let's go. How are y'all? I know some of y'all have actually been watching them and y'all kind of knew that I got laid off. So I go to the unemployment office and they told me that I was eligible for a whopping $281. And I just am like, baby, that's not enough. So here we are on YouTube. So today we are going to the UK, overseas. And 911 dispatch or 999, they have it. They receive a phone call from a woman saying that her boyfriend has been unalived in her apartment, that she had gotten home from work and she had found her boyfriend in their bedroom in the fetal position, that he had been stabbed and he was no longer living. So they come out and they bring her in. Her name was Joanna, and Joanna was a student for psychology, and the gentleman that was in the apartment was Matthew. Matthew was a student as well for psychology. They were boyfriend and girlfriend. They had been living together, and they, on their spare time, they enjoyed gaming, and then they were really big for school. They bring Joanna into the police department. I'm sure it's called the police department. The authorities? I don't know. The police department. And they ask her, okay, can you help us? You know, what happened? She's just like, I don't know. I found him in the apartment. I had just got home from work and he was in the apartment unalived. And they're just like, okay, so who would you think would harm him? And she's just stating, I don't know. He doesn't have enemies. He's a very, very well liked person, and they were pretty big in the gaming world. And they're like, okay. So they go back, and Matthew ended up leaving them a clue for who had did this. So they come back to Joanna and they ask her, does DAV mean anything to you? And she's just like, maybe. There's this one guy, David Heiss, that we've been having issues with online, with their gaming online. And they're like, all right, where is this David Heiss? She's like, I don't know. He doesn't live here. He lives in Germany. And he's just somebody that we know online. So they're looking a little bit further into the David Heiss, and they can't really find anything on him. But there was a record in the hospital of a gentleman who got into a car accident in the UK by the name of David Heiss. They're like, okay, let's follow that lead. David Heiss was born on June 19th, 1987, which makes him a Gemini. David, or Heiss, we're going to call him Heiss, was the oldest of three siblings. He was said to have lived a very suburban life until his parents got divorced when he was the age of 6, and his mother was said to have gotten remarried, and when she got remarried she had more children and she had just a new life, and unfortunately she felt that it would be better for David to go live with his grandparents rather than stay with her and her new husband. David was a good kid. He exceeded in his schooling. He was just an introvert. I guess the rejection of his own mother kind of made him fall into isolation. So he would go to gaming for friends for his social life. So David was 6 at the time of the divorce, and he went to go live with his parents, still in Germany. And I don't know how to pronounce the city. It's Limsern and der Land, Germany. Well, he became very isolated from the rejection of his mother. Although he was a really, really good kid in school, he lacked social skills. So he went into the virtual world to make his friends. It was easier for him because he didn't have to depend on his social skills like eye contact, and when they talked about things, it was just about the games and things like that. So that's where he really, really thrived in his second life online. He exceeded in school, but he really couldn't afford to go to the university. So he ended up just staying in his virtual life. He did attempt to join the military. I'm assuming to try to get a way to get into college, to a university, but he just didn't have any luck. The military ended up stating that he was mentally unstable for it, so they ended up kicking him out. And then he went on to an apprenticeship at a projection company, and he was there. He stayed in that. He was really starting to thrive there. But it was said that when his grandfather had passed away in 2007, it was when he began to even more isolate himself, that he stayed on the computer longer, and that he was just trying to find comfort with his friends online. He ended up meeting Joanna on AW Bunker, which was a shooting game, like an op game, and he really connected with her. He was really intrigued by her because she was a redhead. She was very, very smart. And the AW Bunker actually closed down, and when that closed down, Joanna was the one to make another site called War Central, and she ended up letting all of the gamers migrate to that site. So she made another home for all of the gamers. And it was said that Heiss was very, very intrigued by her. He was started becoming very obsessed with her. She was the creator of his safe haven. He began to cyberstalk her, like through social media or Facebook. She ended up having this journal online, so she was just a blogger, and she also lived through her online presence was there enough for Heist to enjoy and follow along with her. Her website, the gaming site, was actually a creation between her and her longtime boyfriend Matthew. They ended up meeting on a gaming site as well, and they really connected enough to where they began to move in together and start a life. They were both students, and on their spare time they would go into the gaming world. That was just their pastime that they really, really enjoyed together. And unfortunately, Heist was very jealous. He kept pursuing Joanna, and it got to a point where he would tell her, message her things on her social media. I love you more than life itself. I know I shouldn't, but it feels so damn good. And Joanna was just nice, but she kind of rejected him and saying, like, please don't do that. Like, I don't need that type of attention. I have my boyfriend. Like, I'm not here for that. Unfortunately, because Heist lacked social cues, he didn't really understand Joanna. And I think that because he lacked real friends, in-person friends, he couldn't, bounce his ideas off of people, It was just like whatever he thought, that was his reality. And unfortunately, I know I've said it before, with mental health, like not everything you think is real. So it is a lot with your mental health that you need to be able to express what you're thinking, because even when you say it out loud, it's just kind of crazy. But anyways, Heiss began, his little crush ended up becoming just a little bit more invasive. He continued to bug Joanne, and Joanne was just not really going for it. She continued to try to direct him in a better way, saying that, I'm with Matthew. I'm not really interested in this type of relationship. Well, Heist thought that he could possibly change her mind when they saw each other in person. So he ended up getting Joanna's address from one of the members online, being that she was the creator, and she, unfortunately, somehow there was access to her address online. Heiss shows up out of the blue. So he traveled from Germany to the UK, and when he showed up, she was very freaked out, but Matthew was the one that kind of invited him in. He was just like, cool, another gamer, we play online, let's get to know each other in person, and Matthew was just hanging out with him, and he was oblivious to the whole situation because Joanna didn't tell him. So he was pretty oblivious to the entire situation. So Joanna is kind of like freaking out, being that this guy that was bugging her just shows up out of nowhere. And so she immediately starts trying to call hotels, trying to see if there's any type of different lodging arrangements. But unfortunately, there wasn't anything that she could find. And it was just more of like, well, you can stay here for the night and we'll revisit it in the morning. And they said, okay, that's fine. Matthew, lovely Matthew, knocks out, goes sleep, cold. And Joanna was still very freaked out about the situation. Let me do the sigh and I'll be right back. So Heiss ends up getting what he wanted. He stays the night, and Matthew's out. She said that she couldn't go to sleep, and every time she would look over, Heiss would just be staring at her. So she felt entirely uncomfortable about the entire situation, but she did it kind of out of pity. She let him stay there because she felt bad for him. He didn't really have any other place to go, and there was no hotels available for him. Oh. So in the morning, hold on. So in the morning, she ends up reaching out to some of the fellow gamers. Oh my goodness, I can't get this. Hold on. So in the morning, she reaches out to fellow gamers, and she kind of makes it like a fun travel trip that he just goes out and visits with other gamers. And she ended up convincing him like that was a good idea. Some of the other gamers kind of wanted just to hang out, They had been friends for a while, but a lot of the gamers ended up saying that he was very weird, that whenever he did come over, all he wanted was to talk about Joanna. He didn't want to talk about the game. He wanted to talk about Joanna. And he ended up staying in the UK for 3 weeks, visiting with other individuals. And throughout this, Joanna finally tells Matthew about what was going on. And Matthew changes his tune towards it, and Matthew was just like, well, why didn't you tell me this before? So he ends up going online and starts kind of cyberbullying Heiss. He ended up writing a document stating 19 things, 10 things I hate about you. No, 19 things I hate about David Heiss. Other gamers kind of started getting wind of this, and they kind of like start shunning him. When David starts seeing what was going on, Matt, he really didn't like the guy because of Joanna, because he felt like that was the love of his life. So whenever he started getting wind of that, he was starting to talk about him, and like other gamers were starting to talk about him, he was livid. He ends up taking his uncle's car on July 31st, and he ends up going back to the UK. On August 1st, he ends up going into the hospital from a car accident. And after the car accident, that didn't stop him. He got out of the hospital. As soon as he went out of the hospital, he finished his trip, and he went to the UK again to, I guess, confront Matthew. But Joanna actually saw him on the street, and she runs up to her apartment, and they kind of together told him to stop. And he leaves. I'm not too sure if he was because he was injured or he just didn't plan this one out too well. He ends up leaving the UK and goes back to Germany. I guess maybe he was just trying to scare him. Well, after this is when things started getting a little bit more bad. They began to talk about him to the players, like even more players began to understand the severity of it, that he was becoming a stalker, and none of them really liked it. Like Joanna, again, was the queen. She was the creator of this world, and it was just like, why are you messing with her? It was just like, don't mess with her. That's the queen. So a lot of people began bullying him even more. They ended up blocking him on a lot of the group chats, and whenever they would play together, they would leave. So they weren't really for David, because they were messing with Joanna. Well, David ended up messaging Joanna to please stop, like he will unalive himself in front of her. And Joanna was just kind of like fed up with it. She's just like, at this point, I don't care anymore. And he was just like, okay. She stopped replying to his nonsense. And that, I think, is what really triggered him. It was said because of his previous abandonment issues with his mom, that really hurt him. Well, back to the day of the event, they ended up finding him from the car accident. His name popped up from the car accident, and they started looking into David, and they couldn't find him because all he was a user on the computer. And they were in different countries. It was he was in Germany. So they had to get the Germany officials involved to try to track him down. And in the hospital is when they were able to get the address, like a possible address of him. And with everything that was said from Joanna, they felt, we at least need to question this guy. On September 24th, special agent units went and arrested him with the charge of homicide to Matthew. So they brought him in, and it was said that Heiss sang like a bird. He told him everything. They said that he just couldn't hold on to what he did, and he was able to tell him exactly what happened. He was guilty. He didn't really fight it. They told him, if you go to my flat, you'll find everything you need. And when they went to his apartment, they found his trophies, the bloody clothing, the weapon. He didn't throw any of it away. And they're just like, okay, tell me what happened. And he said on September 17th is when he ended up going back after all the bullying happened. He wanted to punish Matthew for all of the issues he was causing him in the virtual world. Like, that was just really his safe haven, and he felt that Matthew was the cause of him losing his connection to that. He said on September 17th is that when he went back, he caught a plane to the UK from Germany, and he packed clothing, sleeping bags, because he knew that he was going to end up having to sleep outside. And he went to the train station, and there's actually footage of him at the train station that it was too late, that there were no trains. So he ended up booking it to Joanna and Matthew's flat, and it was just very, very late, so he ended up sleeping by the AC unit. He waited for Joanna to go to work so that she would be gone, and he would be able to punish Matthew. So whenever Matthew opened the door, he said that Matthew punched him first, and right then is when Heiss began stabbing him, and he chased him throughout the apartment, and it ended in the bedroom. And he just had so much rage, and he at first was gonna put it off as a suicide. He actually had 2 suicide notes, one for Matthew and then one for himself, but he realized that the crime scene, the severity of it, where there was no way he was able to pull it off as a suicide. So he, quick thinking, tried to pull it off as a robbery gone bad. He trashes the apartment, and he takes some stuff to the dumpster because he couldn't hold it, right? And on the cameras, you can see him throwing their items in the dumpster, and they did point out that he was limping because he ended up borrowing some of Matthew's clothing, because his were just covered in blood, that he didn't really think it through. So he had to borrow some of Matthew's clothing, and then he booked it out back to Germany. And it was said after the event that he actually messaged Joanna about 4 days after, saying that he was sorry for all the trouble he had caused, and if she needs anything, we're here for you, as far as the online community. And he would message other gamers like, how is Matt? And he just was still in the mentality that him and Joanna were gonna be able to link up afterwards, that she was gonna go to him for her comfort. But he just couldn't hold that weight. He said that he actually had to stop 3 to 4 times because he started to cry from when he realized what he was doing, that he had a lot of remorse for what he did, but he was just so far in it that he had to finish it. On November 25th, he was convicted for murder for Matthew, and on May 11th, 2009, he was charged guilty, and he didn't have family support. Like, no one really showed up for him throughout his court process, and he was sentenced for life in prison with a minimum of 18 years that he had to complete before he was eligible for parole. And he would have been 21 at the time. So 18 years, what is that? Like 48, 9, 49, 50. He would have been about 50 whenever he is able to get out, if they do let him out. And that's it, folks. I do appreciate y'all spending your time with me. This is a look. How do y'all like it? My hair is out today. But thank you again for supporting me, commenting, liking, subscribing. I do appreciate all of the support. And I don't know, let's see what's up with this unemployment, or if I get another job, I'll let y'all know. But thank you again.